Hello everybody and welcome to the Fortress of Solitude. Today we're going to be checking out Star Wars issues 42 and 43 by Charles Soule, Stephen Cummings, and Jethro Morales. In the wake of Dark Droids, Charles Soule refocuses the book onto Luke Skywalker and his journey to repair his lightsaber, save his father, and learn a little bit more about the Force. Luke's journey takes him back to see Greta, the fallen Arcee woman he met on Christophsis, who helped him get a Kyber crystal from Dr. Quata. I'm quite happy that Soule brought this character back, since he introduced her in that small arc that Luke had when he got the crystal originally, and she was a really interesting character, mainly because she's like a fallen Arcee, which is an old Legends race, and they're connected to the Force, and there's like a lot of lore with them. So I like that he's bringing her back and building on that lore now, as well as we find that Luke has come to her because the fallen Arcee have a deep connection with the Force and these Kyber crystals, since they used to help heal and breathe life into these crystals back during the time of the High Republic and the Old Republic, and way before that as well. Luke asks Greta for help with the red crystal he got from Dr. Quata, since he plans on healing the crystal. I like that beyond healing the crystal and just sort of helping it out, Charles uses this as an opportunity to further prepare Luke to face his father and Palpatine, as Luke wants to use this opportunity to get back into the crystal and learn about the Sith he caught a glimpse of when he first got the crystal, in the hopes that in healing the crystal he'll be able to heal his father of the dark side that infects him. This adds even greater depth to those final confrontations between Luke and Vader in Return of the Jedi, and how he refused to kill his father, leading to Anakin to turn from the dark side. While Luke asks Greta for help, Auntie Phese, another fallen Arcee, arrives and listens to Luke's plight, ending with her actually teaching Luke a fair bit about the crystals and how the Force flows through them and how they work. This is where Charles lays down some of the rules of the crystals as well, and we learn that it's encoded with the terrible events of the past from this Sith's life, and it actually has the memories of the Darksider who used it or who bled the crystal, and if Luke's not careful he could actually become trapped in them. Luke undergoes a meditation and is returned to the inside of the Darkside Kyber, which is a giant fortress ruled by a pale-skinned Sith and his acolytes, who quickly imprison Luke. From here on out, Soule kind of keeps the Sith rather mysterious. We learn a little bit about him in the next issue, but we don't even actually learn his name. We just learn about his backstory and why he became a Sith. And we learn that he's very much like most Sith. He's cruel, he's violent, especially to Jedi who are trying to sway him away from the dark side. And we find Luke thrown into a cell and tortured in the hopes that he'll crack and either turn to the dark side, or like previous Jedi we learn of, kill themselves in the dream, which means they then die in real life. Stephen Cummings and Jethro Morales tag in for this arc, and boy, I like how they visualize a lot of the inside of this Sith crystal and this dream vision that Luke goes on, especially in the second issue where Luke is finally thrown into the larger world within the crystal. The design of the Sith too is pretty cool. It's really simple, it's really effective of conveying, yeah, this is pretty much an evil guy, and I like that it has a real Old Republic feel to him. It feels like something you'd see in like the Old Republic video game. He's got like these big regal red robes and a large hilted lightsaber, which looks pretty cool and very similar to stuff we've seen from the High Republic, especially in games like Jedi Survivor with characters like Dagan Gera's lightsaber. Once we get into issue 43, it gets a little bit more trippy as Luke becomes aware of kind of the rules inside the crystal above what he already learned from Auntie Phese, and he realizes that the cells he's in are kind of like a lockbox for this Sith's memories, as he is able to see the Sith's own past, and we see that he was kind of abandoned as a child. His mother or father, it's unclear, died while he was still a baby, and we actually get to see this great sequence where Luke goes into these memories and tries to help this child Sith and try and protect him from the things that made him a Sith. So things like people bullying him and just general life stuff that happens. We see Luke act as like his guardian angel almost, and the Sith doesn't like this at all and doesn't like being told what to do. And there's this moment where that happened where I'm like, yeah, that actually is kind of right. This is kind of Luke kind of manipulating this guy that maybe wanted to be a Sith. And I kind of like that Soul sort of addresses it here. He kind of sidesteps it a little bit, which is a shame because of course Luke's, you know, the good guy, he's the hero. But I do like that the villain says that, what if I wanted this? What if this is what I wanted for my life? And Luke has no right to come in and try and change that about him. I thought that was quite interesting, and I kind of wish it went a little further with it. Luke does eventually manage to beat the Sith with a new green lightsaber that appears in his hand, but the Sith isn't the final test, as he needs to then face his own pain, which manifests as Darth Vader, and Luke is forced to fight him back on Bespin again. However, this time instead of being backed onto a weather vane, Luke manages to escape, and we get this great moment where he kind of has to relive all of his own loss and pain from his youth, you know, his aunt and uncle dying, his mother dying when she gave birth to him, you know, the Wampa, Obi-Wan dying, all these terrible, terrible events. But that doesn't stop Luke, that doesn't make him waver one bit, and he eventually finds his father and finds that there is still Anakin Skywalker inside of him, and that gives him the realization that his father is not truly gone and he can save him. Luke eventually is freed from the crystal, which is now healed, and despite not really learning anything about the Sith of the present, he actually learned a lot about himself, and he can now move on to creating his green lightsaber with the green crystal that Quata also gave him along with this red one. Soul covers a lot in these two issues, and he makes it look so easy. There's just so much balance of like, okay, there's like some new stuff like with the bleeding of the crystal, which has been a big thing in the Disney Star Wars era, and we get to learn a little bit more about that. We've seen it in the Darth Vader comic and some of the TV series and Jedi Survivor, and I like that he's building on this and sort of inverting it with the healing of the crystal. Since something can be bled, it can also be healed and patched up, and I quite like that. And I quite like that Luke is the one who gets to do it, and the one we get to really see do it the first time properly. It's also quite cool seeing Luke adhere to a lot of the core Jedi teachings here. He keeps telling himself that he doesn't really know a lot about the Jedi, or he's very unsure of his skill, but we keep seeing him time and time again show that he actually is learning, and he's learning these core beliefs where even if he isn't unsure of what he is doing and how to go about it, he still helps out. And that's a core belief in the Jedi, to actually help people who need help, and that is what he is doing. And I think that's quite cool, and this is a great step towards Luke that we see in Return of the Jedi, where he is a little more confident in his abilities and a little bit more sure of what his goal is, since now we've seen Charles Soule give him that goal, which I think is really quite cool. And he's done it in a way where it doesn't upend everything we see in that film either. It kind of adds to it and adds an extra layer to it, which is really hard to do, but Charles just makes it look so easy. Charles Soule and his art team took us on a fantastic Luke Skywalker-centric story for the last 2 issues, dealing with a lot of hanging threads from Luke's Jedi adventures early on in the series, while going to great lengths to add even more depth to Luke's drive to help free his father from the dark side. I'm going to give these 2 issues an 8.5 out of 10.